Right, now in this video we're going to explain what is exactly the Mahabharata war that was fought 3200 BC, around that time, a time before anything like the Mesopotamians, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, and we will infer that this is actually a story that divides man into the abstract concept that was later recognized by scholars as Eastern, Middle Path and Western civilization. That Krishna leaves India a prosperous place. India's role then becomes to protect itself from future invasions to come. Simply it means, as per Bhagavatam, it is not to let India descend into the Kali age, its dark ages. Hence the Indian leaders that will come time after time would re-establish dharma or Sathya. Now, first you've got to understand the ancient land around India, or around that region. It was a land of dharma, etc. So it's not just about karma. It's not about a person just looks towards the world to make gains. It was a land of divine communion, so the Lord as your goal, basically. Tyaga Bhumi, which means the land of detachment, so sacrifice and give up of desires, so a lot of sacrificial mantras are performed. Karma Bhumi, so it is a land of Godward leading activity, such as Nishkama Karma, Sanatana Dharma is practiced, and you feel in your hearts with Ananda the realization. Also, Isa was Sayam Idam Sarvam. All this is enveloped in God. So one would see the Vishwarupa of the Lord. And God is installed in the heart of all beings. So people would see the underlying truth, all our souls. Well, I should say Atma. Vasudevam Sarvam Idam. All this is verily divine Brahman. So in those days, success was not external, buildings. We didn't build, so a person would have to go to Vishwa Karma, the god of architect, to pray, for any external building developments, and that through Krishna too. So in those days, one would gain a divine birth. Just as similar to the divine right of kings, one would gain his status through that. So people stayed in their own caste system, you see. So it had always been like that throughout ancient, meaning it was a land where people connected to the divine, the Brahman. Thus, a person such as Arjuna with divine birth, well versed, would be able to see the Vishwarupa of the Lord. Meaning he sees the Lord's work in all the places. He can consider himself as a puppet of the Lord, and he can fully surrender to his divine will. So now we will move on to other characters like Karna, Duryodhan, and Mata Kunti, which she will be very important in this. Now we will see not everyone could do this in the ancient time, because we are still kind of on a material path. So through everyone's actions, we are still gaining results out of that. So we will find that there will be individuals in the Mahabharata times who are winners. There are losers, like the Kauravas, and there are deprived ones, such as characters like Karna. Just, as you would find the same on the material journey today, the countries now exist are also grouped into the three abstract concepts, which we call the Eastern, Middle Path, and the Western civilization. Now, the story of Arjuna and Karna, it goes back to the ancient story of Nar and Narayana and the sun god, who granted boon to Sastrakavach. The dates are unknown, but they take birth around 3200 BC as Krishna god, and Arjuna is the man, the Nar, and the oldest lost brother of Arjuna, named Karna, is the reincarnation of Susrakarvaj, who is now the son of the sun god himself. Now this is a time, if a person did not do dharma, or say his actions were for the greater good, as we would say in the modern days, and they are only there for their own concern, these category of people would be despised. Hence, everybody had to be engaged in action. They all had to be involved, and thus everybody is involved in the Mahabharata war. Now we will now focus on Karna and Mata Kunti. Karna not having the full knowledge of surrender with God, which means away from the truth, is an entrapment represented by characters such as Duryodhana and Ravana that appears in your life. So Duryodhana had also granted Angraj kingdom to Karna. Now Karna, the character who was the son of the sun god, experienced rejection, pitfalls, people cursing him. It simply meant that he was lacking in divine protection like Arjuna had. Now, with prayers lacking also, what would need to be outside of this territory of divine communion, which was the territory was the Arya Bharat, or like you say the modern India now, meaning if a person's in the body consciousness minded, he would be drifted into the world, which is represented by, or it's a symbolic meaning to Mother Kunti, who gives up Karna, meaning she is his god, and she cannot help him without soul identification. So she drifts him away in a basket to be found by a local family. Another symbolic meaning of Karna's death is when the wheel of his chariot got stuck in the ground. It means his worldly pursuits will let him down. Simply it means the days of empire building, where in the modern days, there is empire building. These days did not exist in those ancient times. In the ancient time, you had to surrender like Arjuna would surrender to Lord Krishna, and that was the way to become successful, although the success itself is not a concern. You knew at that time that there will be consequences to all your actions. Thus the best option would be as Krishna, he was not involved, he was rather a guidance. Now according to Mahabharata, King Shalya, the uncle of Pandavas, who became the charioteer for Karna, mentions to Karna that his kingdom of Angraj sold subjects as slaves. Now, after the Mahabharata, Krishna leaves India a prosperous place, as we had already mentioned. Now, let's flip forward from Mahabharata to Egypt, 2500 BC. Why sun worship? So, why would Egypt choose sun god? They are still dependent on worship as their means to prosperity, unlike the modern age of industry. So, if in the Mahabharata and after Krishna, or another main god such as Lord Shiva did not work for them, and they had to be out of that area, the Arya lands, then they need a substitute. Hence, it was the sun god, the father of Karna. This is how the sun worship spreads. So this time, they will want to also separate themselves from bad associations such as Karna in the company of Duryodhana. The Western civilization will evolve separate, so Egypt will be separate basically. Yeah. So this is a hypothetical idea, but if we flip forward to 1500 BC, we have the character Thutmose III and his mother Hatshepsut. Now the Western world history continues with similar characters to come later also. But based on the character Karna, but in Egypt, its name is Thutmose III. He's nicknamed also the Napoleon of Egypt, but unlike Napoleon, he'd never had lost a battle. He had a stepmother, Hatshepsut, who resembles very much like Kunti Mata. Now, Thutmose has similar problems with Hatshepsut, like Karna has problem with Kunti Mata in the Mahabharata time. So he dislikes her, and she was an obstruction to him to reign for 21 years. After her death, he becomes a pharaoh and reigns for 52 years. Now, ancient Egypt, he transitioned it from being an inward-facing state to an expansionist empire. So now you can see the ideas of empire building has started. Unlike in the ancient time, you had to surrender to the Lord divine. So with pyramids building, also the kingdom transitioned to an empire. This transition also relates to worldly vision rather than the inward path of surrender, as I mentioned. So due to this obstruction, he had carved out his mother's details from the pyramids as well. So he had problems with his mother, just as in the Mahabharata, Karna has problems with his biological mother, Kunti. So mother represents God who helps you when you're on the path of truth. In those days, the path to empire building did not actually exist. So this is the reason why Karna is obstructed, and Moses was also obstructed for a while. Now the west moves on to Greece, Macedonia, 2,500 years ago. There's another attempt by Alexander Sikander to spread the empire, conquers Egypt and Persia, and struggles up to the northwest India. And note, his mother, also named Olympias, had been described as historians describe her as arrogant, meddlesome, and very headstrong. But she was arguably the most influential person in Alexander's life and the driving force behind his rise to the throne. The West then moves on to Europe, and of course now we have many empire buildings, countries, all in competition with each other. And Napoleon Bonaparte is another character who is similar to Alexander, similar to Thutmose III, and we can link him to India Karna. They're all around 5'8" tall in height. The slim people never actually believed that they were warrior-like, and they all had a similar mother who would be very domineering towards this character. And in the beginning they are rejected, but the mother and the son's relationship is very much now has evolved and very much in proximity with each other. So this is the story of Karna I mentioned, and Napoleon and Josephine's story would be similar to Prithviraj Chauhan's story and Sanya Gita story, which is the Eastern version. Later similar characters also evolved, which is now the modern age, and characters are such as President Bush Jr., who is also another character. People did not believe he would be an effective president when the Iraq War had come, but also he has a mother who is very domineering type as well, which links back to India, the Mahabharata times. Kunti Mata, we can infer that she was, as Krishna describes, a great mother. She had domineering power, and all the sons followed her, basically, just like the Pandavas follow Mata Kunti. So we will make an inference here now. The Mahabharata war is actually a war that divided man into Eastern, middle path, and the Western, where the Western story starts from Karna, evolves to Egypt, to Thutmose III. It moves on 2,500 years ago to Alexander. It goes on to the same character, Napoleon, and in the modern day it's evolved with President Bush. So, Om Sri Sai Ram. Thank you. And to conclude, it is all about understanding the fundamental journey of each person, like Christopher Columbus searching for India, but instead finds America. So a lot of this is going on in people's lives. Thereafter, the Lord himself, in the end game, the Lord himself comes, will take over the rind, or he may become the source again. But it is all unknown, as the future is uncertain. But Om Sri Sai Ram, Om Sri Sai Ram, surrender to the divine. That is the next.